the host right now, right?
Yes. Sorry about that. For some reason everything was moving kind of slow. All right. You are now tuned into the Promise Key. I am your host, Kushite Selassie, and we are here today with one of the most overwhelming people I've ever seen in my life. You are the Miss Elliott. You are the driving force to curing racism in this country, and I salute you on that.
Well,
The
thank you.
brown
It's
eye
not.
blue eye test is the
You're very
greatest thing I
specific.
have ever come across.
Well, wonderful. I don't believe it,
She
but I'll
said,
take it.
"Well,
I'll let you know.
wonderful."
Yes.
Do you
And
have
the
that four
topic for the
minute?
night.
You have that
Say
4 minute
what?
clip I sent you?
Say that one more
What?
time.
You're both talking. You're talking at the same time, so I can't understand either one of you.
Oh, I
Oh,
was
sorry.
asking. Yeah, I was asking the host if he had that 4 minute clip that I sent him when you were in the classroom with the students in England. Because
Oh,
I
okay.
was gonna ask him to play it real briefly so the viewers could get like a synopsis of what you bring in and what you're dealing with and how you get down and your flow and everything. You know,
Ah, crap. I thought I
Okay.
had. Yeah, that's the clip I'm looking for. I was trying to play that
I
as the
sent it
opening, but
to
for some reason it's
Facebook.
not uploading.
Oh, it's not uploading. Oh, it's just 4 minutes. Maybe you can find it on YouTube real quick. I don't know.
Yeah, I got you. I can just share the screen.
Right.
But yes, for all y'all who don't know, this is Jane Elliott. She is the lead. She is the one who is the leading person on the infamous brown eye blue eye test. That really, in my opinion, literally makes white people check their privilege, for lack of a better word. Because a lot of them find out that they actually have racist tendencies that they didn't know that most of them don't even know about.
Uh-huh.
So these tests are really good, not because they're not out to expose like the make people out to be bad people. It's the correct behaviors that's been taught to them for so long. If they so-called aren't racist anymore, then they should act accordingly. Not stop pushing the whole stop doing things that push the agenda that keep that or at least puts them in a position where they can at least better understand their so-called fellow Americans. If what
But
I'm saying makes more sense.
but you see, we've got to stop using the language of racism. We've got to stop talking about races. There's only one race of human beings on the face of the earth. That's the human race, and we are all members of it. We've got to teach three basic things in every classroom in the United States of America. Number one, we've got to stop calling this country America. America is everything from the northernmost point of Canada to the southernmost point of South America. The citizens of all those countries are Americans. This country, these 48 contiguous states, Alaska, Hawaii, and the islands off the southeastern coast of the United States, are the United States of America. And the most important part of that title is the word united. Now, for 4 years, we had a president who tried to divide us, and he got it done. So now we are indeed 50 divided states. We've got to bring it all back together again and once again become the United States of America. And we've got to start calling this country the United States of America or US, which spells us. We've got to stop talking about all these different races because there aren't any. I'm sorry, you and I are 30th to 50th cousins because if I trace my DNA back far enough, I will find that at least 1% of my DNA came from a country in Africa. We are all members of the same race. We've got to get that into people's heads. Number one, the three things you have to know is without blacks, there would be no whites. You have to realize that black people, white people, I'm sorry, people who are called white represent only from 15 to 18% of the population of the world. Did you know that? And only half of those so-called white people are male. So white males represent less than 7 to 9% of the population of the world, and they think that they have the right to control the whole damn thing, including my body and your body. They don't. They do not have that right. We would not, there would be no white people if black people, what we call black people, hadn't left the area of the equator and traveled to populate every landmass on the face of the earth. Every human being living on the face of the earth today is the descendants of one of those people from Africa. So Black Lives Matter, you're damn right they matter. Without blacks, there would be no whites. Number two, without Jews, there would be no Christians. There would be no Muslims. Both of those faiths are built on the Jewish faith. So stop this anti-Semitic nonsense, because without the Jewish faith, there would be no Christianity and no Islam. Get over it. And the third thing we have to remember is, without women, there would be no men. The first modern human being that evolved on this earth was a woman. She evolved in sub-Saharan Africa. She was very dark because her body produced a lot of melanin to protect her cells from the dangerous rays of the sun. So get over it, people. The only reason there are men on the earth is because women are able to carry a living being inside their body, and after 9 months of that, push something the size of an orange out of a hole the size of a little green pea, and do it over and over and over again. And until men have that capacity, don't you men tell us women what we should do with our bodies. You got it? And you want to worry about abortion? We could stop the necessity for abortion. All we have to do is say to men, if you contribute to an unwanted pregnancy, you must submit to involuntary vasectomy so that you won't contribute to another unwanted pregnancy. Now, vasectomy is done in the doctor's office, snip, snip, it's over, and it is reversible. Motherhood is not reversible. Once you have a child, even if you give it away, you hear that child crying in the night. Motherhood is not reversible. You can reverse vasectomy, and then when you are ready to have children, impregnate all the women who want to be impregnated by you. But you don't have the right to impregnate women and then say it's up to you to take care of this because we won't let you get rid of it. Am I making sense here?
Oh, you're making plenty of sense. You are making the most sense I've ever heard in the most come out of a Caucasian woman's mouth. And it's like, it's so raw. That's what I love it so much.
Okay.
It's like
Hey,
she's saying the inevitable. You know what I mean?
Real.
None of this is inevitable, people. And just a few minutes ago, I had people here, and I took them over to my church, this little church that we bought because nobody wanted it for a church anymore. So we bought it, turned it into a guest house.
Right.
And somebody said, "Well, what about all the dead people?" I said, "What dead people?" "Well, don't you believe in death?" "No, I don't believe in death. I believe in life after death. I believe that when you so-called die, your spirit goes into that other dimension.
It
It says so
transforms.
in all
Yes.
the books I've ever read. There is no death. There is only,
Right.
and you go into another dimension.
Yes.
Someday I'll go into
Another
that other dimension. Right now, my oldest son and my husband are both there. And I know they're saying to whoever decides who comes and goes, don't bring her up here yet. She'll just make a lot of trouble. Leave her right where she is. So I probably will live for another 20 or 30 years. I'm just, this problem of this ugliness of the idiocy of racism has to stop, and it has to stop in my lifetime.
Right. Yes. People, we have been this has been in the making, and I am so glad that we finally got this show on the roll. Yes. I'm here. We're gonna play a quick clip of their it's gonna be a clip basically of what happens during one of your experiments, and how
Wait, 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 wait,
and
wait,
how
wait, wait, wait,
when you
wait.
put people in a situation where they have to acknowledge the atrocities that's going on in the world, and actually have to suffer through it, how uncomfortable it makes them.
Well, if you call that an experiment, then what you are saying is we have been experimenting with people of color in this country for 250 years. This isn't
Yes.
an experiment. You do an exercise. I did an exercise so that my students would empathize with those who were different from themselves. I wasn't doing an experiment. I didn't expect to learn anything from what I did. I learned an immense amount. I expected my students to learn something, but I wasn't doing it so I could learn something from those poor little children. I was doing it so that they could learn something from a life experience that they had never had before they did it based on the color of their eyes in my classroom. It wasn't an experiment then. It isn't an experiment now, and don't let anyone call it an experiment. It's
Yeah, but
illegal.
she had a nice meltdown.
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
Go on.
No, yes, ma'am. I was disagreeing with you.
The student had a nice
Good. That's a
meltdown.
good idea.
Yeah. All right, y'all. We gonna play this clip right quick. Hopefully we can get it right.
Oh, there it is.
Words correctly as they're written.
Why can't a blue eye be more like a brown?
What's the word in front of blue?
A.
That's the letter A. What word is that? Read it over and get it right.
Why can't a blue eye be more like a brown?
Now, practice one more time.
Why can't a blue eye be more like a brown?
Next.
Louis, don't let
Oh, look at this. Did I tell you it was fun to watch blue-eyed people? Next.
I'm not prejudiced. Some of my best friends are blue-eyed.
How many of you have ever heard that one before in another form? Oh, yes. Favorite claim of liberals, right? I'm not prejudiced. Some of my best friends are black. Has any person ever said to you, any good liberal person ever said to you, when I see you, I don't see you black?
Every day!
Every damn day! How many of you have had that experience? When I see you, I don't see you black. And what do you say to them when they say that?
But I am.
But I am. And then what do they say?
They say, but I don't see color.
I don't see color. How many of you think they do see color? Well, people, if they didn't see color, they wouldn't say, when I see you, I don't see you black, because they wouldn't see black, would they? So you immediately know that they're lying, don't you? Yeah, they are lying. They're saying, I don't see your color.
You can't say, I don't see color, because then you'd be seeing in black and white. And that would be a really weird world to see. If everything was black and white, we would be some really messed up people.
It happens to me on a daily basis in the institution I'm at, and there's really no way around it, because whether people do it intentionally or not, what am I supposed to do?
You don't have to take that. And I take it you don't take it. Good for you. Good for you, because as long as you say, oh, thank you. And do you know black people who would say, oh, thank you? Yes. How many of you know black people who would say, oh, thanks. I'm glad you don't see me black. I'm glad you don't see my color. Your skin is only the largest organ on your body, right?
Probably the part of the exercise I had the most trouble with was when I was forced to realize that I have something that I didn't want to give up, that I'm in a position that other people aren't in. You know, there are other people in my position, but not everybody has that, and that it's not fair for me to protect that.
On the day these white kids are in this exercise, they see themselves as other people see them for the first time in their lives. Do you know the physical aspects of the listening skills?
Afraid not.
You're afraid not? What about you?
Definitely not.
Definitely not. What about you?
A bit.
A bit?
Yes.
A bit?
Yes.
Well, tell me what the bit is that you know.
The bit that I know is that you stand up straight, you look at the person who's speaking, and you pay attention to what they're saying.
What if you're sitting down?
I am sitting down.
Then you can't listen, right?
Yeah, you can listen by sitting down.
Oh, you just said you stand up straight?
I said you sit up straight.
Did she say you sit up straight, or did she say you stand up straight? Is this a universal problem with blue-eyed people? You have a paper and pencil with you?
No.
Do you?
Over in my bag, maybe.
Over in your bag?
Yes.
Why is it in your bag?
Because that's where I keep it.
That's where you keep it.
When I'm
Why
not
did you put
using
your
it.
paper and pencil over there?
Because I did not know when I was going to be needing it.
You came to a learning experience, right?
Yes.
Did you ever go to a learning experience before?
Yes.
Did you ever take notes?
Yes.
What did you use?
I used a paper and pencil.
Paper and pencil. And did you keep it with you so that you could take notes?
Yes.
Yes. Why didn't you do that this time?
Because I was not planning on taking notes.
You weren't planning on taking notes? You
No.
think you can remember everything that's going to be done in here and said in here?
Not word for word.
Not word for word, so what should you have done?
I
Probably, she's going to say, I probably should have done it right. What should you have done?
should have brought my paper and pencil over here and kept it with me
That's
the entire
right.
time.
That's right. You're acting angry.
I am angry.
What are you angry about?
I'm angry that you're yelling at me.
Do you hear me yelling? This is yelling! Have I done that yet?
Okay, you're using a stern voice and
Are
it's making me angry.
you defining me?
No, I am not defining
Is she
you.
defining me? Does she say I'm yelling when I'm not? Perception is everything.
Yes, 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 yes.
Yeah, I was
Now,
waiting for the part when the girl walked out of class crying when she had the meltdown. I was waiting on that part to come.
yeah, we gonna get to that.
That was the funny part of it.
Yes.
She
Now, Miss
melted.
Elliott,
Okay.
do you, how now, Miss Elliott, when it came to this particular experiment and this in particular and the people, I'm sorry. When it came to this exercise, what would you put? What do you think? What do you think? How do you think? What do you think did they take from? Did you think that they took anything from it? The blue eyed people of it. Did you think they took anything from this at all?
Oh, they take a lot from it. They find out how it feels to be singled out on the basis of a physical characteristic over which they have absolutely no control, and which, up to the time they sit down in that classroom, wasn't of any importance whatsoever. I have had adult males, if there is such a thing, adult pale-faced males coming into the exercise at US West and US West Direct and Public Service of Colorado, blue-eyed males wearing brown contact lenses for the day because they have heard this sounds like a lie, but it isn't. They really did. And I've had the person who hired me for that particular group say he was wearing brown contact lenses. I said, why didn't you tell me that? I wanted to watch him squirm. And they squirm because they know they are doing something wrong, but they are trying to avoid learning. The kids who go through this take
Wow.
away things that they would never have experienced before, and they will never tolerate people being treated the way I treated them that day again. They don't put up with it after they've gone through the exercise. Many of the kids that were in that class, and that's a class at Bard College in New York State, and they were there, they were getting an hour of college credit for going through the exercise that day. And they learned things that they didn't had never thought of, had never had to think of, because if you're pale, if you're melanemic, which is what we should be saying instead of white, if you're melanemic, you don't have to learn these things unless somebody says to you, now I'm going to let you learn something that you should have learned the way I learned it, and I learned it at birth. A whole lot of people of color learn at birth what their position in this country is going to be for their whole life. We
Facts.
start teaching you prenatally, because if you have a mother who's of color, she doesn't get the same treatment that those pale-faced mothers get. You know it, and I know it, but we don't want to talk about it.
Yes, 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 yes. So here comes the budding question of this whole interview. Are all white people racist on some level?
You aren't born racist, but you are encouraged to think that of the rightness of whiteness from the moment you're able to hear.
Mm-hmm.
This country, this society teaches directly and indirectly, teaches the greatness, the rightness of whiteness. We do it by the way we run our schools. We do it by the way we run our hospitals. We do it by the way we run our government. We do it because that is what we have learned all our lives, and it has worked for pale faces. It has worked well for pale faces. But right now, we're in a big situation here. People are really angry about CRT, which stands for critical race theory. For other
Mm-hmm.
people, it stands for critical race theory. For me, CRT stands for curriculum respecting truth. And we should stop teaching that Columbus discovered America. This continent was discovered by people from Africa between 20,000 and 10,000 years before Columbus was a gleam in his father's eye. That's what we should be teaching, instead of teaching that Columbus discovered America. And we've got to start teaching that the people we call Native Americans also came from Africa. And their bodies, their skin, their hair, and their eyes were a different color in many cases because of their body's response to the natural environment. It had nothing to do with being God's chosen children or not. We've got to start teaching the truth and realize that we people from the UK and from Europe, those European countries invaded this country. We didn't discover it. It was here long, and it was discovered by somebody else long before we got here. We need to realize that. We need to make that part of Black History Week, Black History Month. And we need to stop, for God's sake, using the words white and black. You can see the color of my hair, and you can see the color of this shirt. They're both white. My skin is not white. My skin is a shade of brown, except where it's speckled. There are no white people and there are no black people. And when I see you, I can see where your skin starts and where your hair begins. Your hair is black, but your skin is a shade of brown. We are all shades of brown because we all have some melanin in our skin, our hair, and our eyes. And the melanin is the result of being exposed to your ancestors, being exposed to a lot of sunlight. My ancestors weren't exposed to a lot of sunlight. The people who got into Ireland from Africa, their skin, their hair, and their eyes were lighter than they were when they left Africa over the centuries because they were exposed to less and less sunlight. That's the only reason we have lighter skin, lighter hair, and lighter eyes. Get over it, people. Just do yourselves a favor. Here, just do this. We have pictures of Jesus hanging all over the Methodist Church in Osage, Iowa. People, in the Bible, it says that Jesus had kinky, woolly hair and feet of bronze. Obviously, he was a man of color. He was an Ethiopian Jew. Get over it, people. White folks don't want to worship a man that looks like you people do, because they want to worship somebody who looks like me with a closed mouth. Well, I'm sorry. I almost never close my mouth. When somebody asks me a question, I'm bound to answer it. You don't always like the answers, but I have been threatened with death so many times that I have no fear anymore. If somebody kills me, I'll say thank you, because then I'll get to go into that other dimension and I'll get to talk to my husband and my son and my father. So do me a favor.
Okay, because life after death is that life is so sweet.
Well, that you can't scare me by threatening me with death.
That's
that doesn't.
Because
That,
we're all
that is
going to
not
be
the worst thing that happens to us
one day.
Well, living a useless life is worse than dying. Make no mistake about that.
That's right. Be like
and
a
living a
zombie
life and living a life in which you perpetuate the myth of the rightness of whiteness is a mistake. We've got to get over that. We've got to do it now.
That's
Any other
true.
questions?
Facts. So
you would think that those students were having meltdowns, especially the one that stormed out the classroom?
Oh, that was a script. Really, that was just ridiculous, because she left the room storming, and later on I had to go out and do a couple of things out in the hall, and there was the psychology professor standing there, and I said, "Aren't you the psychology professor?" "Well, yes." "Well, where's the student who left the room?" "Well, she went up to her room." "Well, weren't you hired to be here today to protect them in case there was a traumatic experience?" She said, "Yes, but I don't want to miss this." I said, "What do you mean?" She said, "I'm not going up there. I don't want to miss what's going on here." Think about that.
Exactly.
Yeah,
you don't have time for this
I just
student
thought,
having a meltdown right about now. She has time to hear what you're talking about. She likes the meltdown.
yeah, she's
real.
and she said she can handle it. She can handle herself. And I thought, holy words that you don't want me to say. But what in the world are you here for then, if you can't go and take care of that young woman who's having a terrible time? And think of this. If you are a person of color in the United States of America, particularly if you are what we call black, if you look African in the United States of America, you have had worse things than what happened to you, starting from the day you were able to recognize what's going on.
Exactly. And then
you couldn't just leave the room, and you couldn't say, "I don't have to put up with this anymore." You can't do that. You just have to stay and nod and smile sometimes, but you don't dare act angry, because that's the most frightening thing that can happen to a pale face, is to have a person of color look angry, because we're scared to death of you. And you need to
That's what
remember
they
that.
say.
So the worst thing you can do is act angry. So you go along to get along, because you want the grade, you want to get the hours, you want to get the credit, you want to get the job.
Mm-hmm.
And you have to do that, unless I'm very much mistaken, you have to do that every week of your life, several times a week, I think. If you turn on television, you have to do it all the time the television's on, because you have to listen to a lot of nonsense that has, particularly when they say after Mr. Floyd was killed, people of all races are in the street. No, there weren't people of all races in the street. There was only people of all colors, people of all genders, people of all sexual orientations, people of all religions, people of all cultures, people of all backgrounds, but not people of all races. There's only one race. As long as we use words of, and this is what bothers me the most, the idea of the race, the word race, meaning a specific group of people, came out of France in 1580. Did you know that? You need to realize that word was used to describe a certain group of people only starting in 1580. And the idea of black and white people came out of the Spanish Inquisition, the late 1400s and the early 1500s. We are still using the vocabulary that they used to describe people in the 14 and 1500s.
Yeah,
Now,
because they
folks,
had a
if
racist
you're going to use
agenda.
it, but you see, if they didn't know about various colors, so they called white is the color of purity and goodness. Black is the color of savagery and evil. So we'll pick colors because they couldn't tell which religion was by looking at you. So they killed a whole lot of Christians. They were trying to make everybody Catholics. They killed a whole lot of people, and they realized after they killed a number that they'd killed a bunch of Christians. So then they decided they had to find a way to decide who deserved to die. So they set upon skin color. Good people were those with light skin, bad people were those with dark skin. So light is white and dark is black. And that's how this whole thing got started. Now, if you're going to continue to use the vocabulary of the 14th and 15th century, I challenge you to use the same means of communication and transportation that were used in the 14th and 15th century. And I'll be watching for some smoke signals to come up around the horizon for people to tell me how awful they think I am. You all need to get over the idea of black and white. Humans do not come in those colors. We come in shades of brown, very, very, very dark brown to very, very, very light brown. And here's a way to, you think I'm crazy. Everybody thinks I'm crazy because I'm living in an insane world.
No, not really, because there are 16 shades of black. So I see the science behind what you're saying. When you look at the color
Yeah,
spectrum, there's so many different
that's
shades of
right.
light skin. You got different shades of dark skin. You got different shades of brown. That's the spectrum right there.
But we're all shades of brown. You need to get the Pantone color wheel. Buy a copy of the Pantone color wheel, put it on the wall, have people go up to the Pantone color wheel, put their palm on it, not their back, because our palms are all pretty much the same color. Put their palm on the Pantone color wheel and run their hand around it until they come to a color that matches the skin on the back of their hand. Then decide what they think that color is. In order to find out what that color is, go to the thesaurus and look up all the synonyms for brown. One of those synonyms will match the color on the back of your hand. Then you go to the dictionary and take that word and look it up in the dictionary, and it will tell you what color the back of your hand is. People, I've met so many, many, many people who say, I'm a black man. I say, you're a man, there's no doubt about that. But I can tell where your hair stops, where your skin stops, and where your hair begins, and they aren't the same color. Your hair is black and your skin is a beautiful, beautiful shade of dark, dark, dark brown. And there's a word for that. Go to the dictionary, go to the thesaurus, and find the word that describes your skin color. I got an email from somebody not too long ago. A woman said, my little brown boy is so much happier in school now because now he's just one of the little brown kids. It's all right for him to be her little brown boy. People, if you want to know what being white does for you, look up Tanzania. Google Tanzania. In Tanzania, there is a large group of albinos. You read that article on Tanzanian albinos. It will blow you away when you realize how they suffer in that country because of the lack of melanin in their skin. Read it. It's just terrifying. Absolutely terrifying. Okay, are we done now?
No, not really. We gonna share the rest of that clip because I want the audience to see. I want the audience to see this girl's reaction to these things. I want her to see these reactions.
You're not in a hurry, are you, Jane?
Are you, Miss Elliott? Are you in a rush?
I'm here.
Okay.
You aren't talking to me, are you?
Yes, ma'am, I am.
Yeah, we was asking you,
I'm
are you in
here.
a hurry?
Am
We
I
don't
in
want
what?
to keep you longer than we have to.
Well, go ahead. I've got lots of time.
Okay.
When you're
Okay, great.
let me put it this way. When
Okay.
your name is on the list of banned authors and speakers, you have lots of time to speak.
Okay, we just want to make
Yes.
sure you're comfortable. We want to make sure you're comfortable. That's why.
Yes, ma'am.
Go
I
ahead.
was unsure who had gone first.
That isn't
So
what you
I
said
asked
before.
him.
That isn't what you said before. You said he read before you. And you said, yeah, I guess I did. Duh. Well, probably did. I may have. Is this a slow group? Do you know the physical aspects of the listening skills?
I believe not.
Do you?
No.
Do you?
Yes.
Okay, what are they? You're sitting up straight, so you've got one already, right?
You should look at the person who's talking and sit up straight or have open body posture.
Open body posture is crossed legs?
No.
No. Aren't you going to be a good listener then? There, now, this is open body posture. Shouldn't your legs be apart if they're open?
Not necessarily.
Like that. Hey, I'm here.
Not necessarily because
Bring it on, honey. I'm ready.
cross body position.
Now, does that make sense what you just said?
A crossed body position gives the effect that you are not open to what someone is saying. But when people's body position...
Wait a minute, stop. I'm going to make a sign and hold it up in front of you that says, stop when you get too wordy, and you just did. Do you know the physical aspects of the listening skills?
Apparently not.
Apparently not. Oh, I don't think you do. You certainly don't have an open body posture. Do you know the physical aspects of the listening skills?
No.
No. Do you?
No, Miss Elliott.
But you got a real open body posture, don't you, darling?
I guess
So you can learn, can't you?
I'll try.
You'll try. You might be one of the good ones, right? Now, when your hand is up, it means you're not thinking about what is being said. You're thinking about what you're going to say. You blue-eyed people think that I look angry. You're the only ones who think I look angry. I don't look angry to these brown-eyed people. Perception is everything. White people look vicious and ugly and non-caring and cruel and arrogant and powerful and condescending and angry. Are you angry?
No.
Oh, good for you. You angry?
I'm trying not to.
Trying not to be. Now, does that take a lot of energy?
Yes.
Yes. Are you holding it in?
Yes.
Yes. And are you trying really, really hard not to react to me?
Yes.
Yes. And are you trying really hard not to look at me?
At the moment, yes.
Yes. Why?
Because I don't want to make myself more upset.
You don't want to make yourself more upset by looking at me.
Yes.
Right. Does that take a lot of time, a lot of energy?
Yes.
Yes. Is that hard for you?
Yes.
Could you develop an ulcer over this?
No.
If you had to do it every day, what would happen to your blood pressure?
It would rise.
Yeah. If somebody stood over you and you knew it was going to happen every day, or you expected it to happen every day, or it happened when you didn't expect it to, or it happened to your kids every day, after it happened to your mother every day. Now, getting right along, your hand is still up. You still didn't learn anything, did you? Didn't I just say when your hand is up, you are thinking of what you're going to say instead of what's being said? Didn't I just say that?
Yes, you did.
And did you hear that?
Yes, I did.
And did you decide that you were just going to do it your way?
I was.
Wait a minute, you were on a roll
yes,
there for
I
a minute.
did.
Thank you very
yes,
much.
Yes, I did.
Now, since you choose to not listen to others, what do you suppose we're going to do where you're concerned?
Not listen to me.
Thank you very much.
May I finish what I was saying,
No,
please?
because you're still thinking of what you're going to say instead of what I'm saying. Now, getting right along.
I heard what you were saying.
You're doing it again.
What you were
You're
saying.
doing it again.
I don't care.
You're doing it
because
again.
It's wrong.
You're doing it again.
Persecuted her for standing out.
You're doing it again.
Persecuted him for standing out. The only change that ever happens is when people stand out, and I am standing out.
Martin Luther King Jr. was shot. Are you in any physical danger here?
She melted.
Are you in any physical danger here?
She like what?
Is that girl in any physical danger here? Emmett Till was hanged by his neck after he was beaten almost to death, simply because he made a statement to a white woman. Does he have a reason to be angry?
Yes.
Big laughs, big time laughs.
Yes.
Oh.
And what was the most entertaining about that was the nerve she had to actually come back in the classroom and think she didn't have to say anything. Just she was gonna come back in and just sit down like nothing had happened and whatnot.
What do you mean?
Like
What do you mean?
we white folks can do every day.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. I could do that. I could storm out. I could come back. I could storm back out again. I have that privilege.
Right.
That's the point Jane's been making, that they fail and cram to understand.
We tramp on other people's rights on a daily basis, a minute by minute basis, because we have the right to, because of the rightness of whiteness, which doesn't even exist. And we're going to have to learn that pretty soon. Within 30 years, what we call white people will be a numerical minority in the United States of America. We'd better get used to not being the greatest in number and the greatest in knowledge. We have never been the greatest in knowledge, but because we had the numbers, we didn't have to know anything. You compare Barack Obama to Dinosaurus T. Rump and tell me which one of those two had to know a lot to get that job.
And probably neither one of them.
Right.
If you ask me.
Well, if you're going to compare those two, there's no comparison at all.
Right.
This whole thing is made up out of full cloth. It's a lie. It is built on a lie, and the lie needs to be exposed, and we need to get over it before this country stops being a democracy. And we are on the verge right now of losing our democracy. And we're on the verge of losing our democracy because of, unfortunately, evangelical Christianity. It is probably the worst thing that's happened to this country in many, many years, because it's being misused on a daily basis. Jesus must be crying out loud. This is what's happening now in the name of Christianity is an absolute crime. You didn't want to keep laughing. You're gonna. Okay. Any other questions you want to ask the other one?
Yes. I've heard. I remember you. I remember seeing when you were on Oprah, and you was telling the story about how you had a white male in one of these tests, and you spoke about how after so many years he still remembers what transpired in that. So how can you explain how many times do people come back to you and say that they appreciate the experience?
I get that a lot. And the reason I get it is after you have been in the position of being treated for even half an hour, the way people of color are treated in this country. There's no way you can forget that. It becomes part of your soul. It really does. And it changes the way they see their world and the people in their world for the rest of their lives. It changes the way they treat their children. I'll never forget my father, he was probably 59 years old. The Canadian Broadcasting Corporation had made a film in my classroom of my students going through the blue-eyed, brown-eyed exercise. That was the second time we went through the exercise. They came down and made a film of my students. They sent me a copy of that film, and I took it up to the hotel which my husband and I owned, and my parents were living in. And I showed that film to my father and my mother, and my father was about 59 years old at the time. And when it was over, and I hadn't seen that man cry since my little sister died at the age of 3.5. I haven't seen him cry. Hadn't seen him cry. He stood up after that film was over, and he took his red handkerchief out of the back pocket of his blue bib overalls. He blew his nose. He wiped his eyes, and he said, "I wish somebody had taught me that when I was 9 years old." It changed the way he saw himself and his world, and the way he had educated his children. He wished that he had known what I taught my students when he was 9 years old, so that he could teach his children in a different way when they were 9 years old.
Right, right.
And it was the most amazing thing. And now when psychologists say that was too harsh for those little children, you shouldn't do that with anyone, they're wrong. It is too harsh to use it on a white child, so-called white child, for a day. It is absolutely insane to use it with children of color for a lifetime.
Right.
If it's wrong for a so-called white child, if it's wrong for a melanemic child for a day, it is absolutely, totally wrong for melanaceous and melanotic children for a lifetime.
Facts.
Especially how we facing it every day on so many different layers of it. It's so many areas that we experience racism. So different.
But
And
nobody should have to be treated unfairly on the basis of a physical characteristic over which you have no control. And
Exactly.
you need to realize skin color isn't the problem. Ignorance is the problem. Self-imposed ignorance is the problem. And once we get to the point where people are educated instead of just indoctrinated in the schools, we will have killed the idea of several different races.
yes,
That makes
that
complete sense.
that has to
If
definitely
it
start in the
if
schoolhouse. Also at
if it
home.
doesn't make sense,
Why is
if
that so?
education doesn't make sense, let's close the schools. But you see,
Mm.
I'm an educator. I'm not a teacher. I'm an educator. And the word educator means it comes from the root duck deuce, which means lead, the prefix e, which means out,
Which
the
I your
suffix
mic
ed,
is picking
which
and
means the act of, and the
echoing.
suffix or, which means one who does. An educator is one who is engaged in the act of leading people out of ignorance. And you can't do that when you talk about races and different races. And after all, children, different faces are different races. No, they aren't. There's only one race of people on the face of the earth, and we've got to start teaching that pre-kindergarten. Are
Right.
you still there?
Yes, ma'am. David has a question. Will white inferiority have a very rough ending?
Oh yeah, it's going to have a very, very rough ending. Absolutely. If we don't straighten our act out pretty soon, if we don't start to realize that you cannot think that 7% of the population of the world has the right to rule everybody, you're in big trouble. As people get more and more true education, more and more of us are going to look upon those who have told us how brilliant they are. They have shown us that they aren't as brilliant as they say they
She's
are.
echoing.
They've had the power to tell us that they're brilliant, and they've had the power to make us go along to get along. It's not going to work much longer. White people have been outnumbered on this earth always, since the beginning of time. We have never been in the numerical majority on this earth. We will not be in the numerical majority in the United States of America within 30 years. We'd better start learning how to get along with those who are different from ourselves, because we're playing catch-up ball right now. We've got to educate our students in a different way from now on. You can't make it retroactive. But you can start now to say, look, kid, we're going to tell you the truth. There's only one race in my classroom. There's only one race of people. You are all members of the same race. And if I were teaching third grade now, I would have the Pantone color wheel on my wall. And I would have my kids put their hands on it. And I would have them decide what color their skin is. And I would have them use that for the color of their skin. A couple of young women called me not two or 3 years ago and said, from now on, when we have to fill in a form where it asks for race, we're going to put human. I said, good. What are you going to do when it starts to say skin color? One of them said, I'm going to put mocha. The other one said, I'm going to put chocolate. I said, fantastic.
Right?
That
If that's the color of their skin, yeah, I look chocolate.
That's the color of their skin. And there are no redskins, people. We only call them redskins because natives of this continent painted themselves red for special occasions. So we ignorant Europeans came here and called them redskins. They weren't red and they aren't red now. They came from Africa just like all the rest of us did. See, if we could just educate instead of indoctrinate, we could change this whole situation. And people would say, oh, that's too simplistic. Wait,
Not
people.
necessarily.
It's not simplistic. It just makes big sense. Well, you see, you have to. I don't have a whole lot of time for people who insist on calling themselves white and black because you aren't. You're very, very dark and I'm very, very light, but I ain't white and you ain't black. So get over it.
Yeah. So, when it comes to that, what is our first step? What is the first step of pushing this agenda from not just from like on an individual level, but what can we do as a whole?
We stop. Okay, I could go on forever. You know that. We stop using
Please
words like
do.
biracial, and multiracial. People, there are no biracial people. There's only one race, so you can't have biracial people unless. And people say to me every time I do something, somebody comes up and says, "Well, I'm a member of a biracial family." I said, "Really? Which of your parents came from another planet?" That's not funny. I'm not being funny. You're the one who said you're biracial. Yeah, evidently you have a parent from another planet. I'll never forget the woman, a teacher in a university in Texas, who stood up while I was talking and said, and she's about 45 years old, "Mrs. Elliott, I just look for the person's heart." And I said, "Madam," and she was in the middle of a group of students. I said, "Madam, can you see my heart from where you're standing? Because if you can, you should go down to the local hospital and volunteer to be their x-ray machine. You could save them a lot of money." She said, "You don't understand what I said, "I understand exactly what you're saying. What you're saying is you can't relate to somebody unless you can pretend that they aren't the color they are. Have you ever dressed a chicken?" And I think she thought I meant, have you ever put clothes on a chicken? She said, "I don't know what." I said, "Have you ever cut a chicken apart to get it ready to cook it?" "Well, no." "Well, if you ever did, you would realize that inside our parts are very, very colorful. So that isn't working for me for you to say, I just see the person. I just look for the person's heart." She said, "I don't have to put up with this." I said, "That's right, you don't." And she stormed out of the room. Now she's an instructor on that campus. And those kids looked at me and they looked at where she had been and they looked at one another. And I said, "People, you need to realize that she just exercised a freedom that no person of color in this room has. When she doesn't like what's being said, she can storm out of here and she isn't going to lose a dime of her wages. But if a black person did the same thing, or what you think is a black person did the same thing in her class, that person would be out of that class and out of this institution. She just
Oh, I've been
exercised a
suspended
freedom."
over crap like that.
Yeah, well, I wish I'd had I wish I wish I had video clips of all the time that melanated people have said the most absolutely ignorant things imaginable and gotten away with it because the melanaceous and melanotic people expect us to say idiotic things. They've heard it all before. They take a look at us. They know when we come in the room that we're going to say something totally racist, and they're going to have to pretend that you didn't really mean what you just said.
Wow.
Some woman walked up to me not too long ago and said, "Oh God," she said, "I'm colorblind. I don't see color." I said, I knew that before you told me, because if you weren't colorblind, you wouldn't wear that shirt with those pants. She was absolutely furious. How dare you say that to me? I said, how dare you say to me that you're colorblind? You know you see the color of my skin, and you know you see the color of the woman who's standing next to me. She took off almost running.
Jay took her all over the place.
She was real thin, and she had on high heels about this high, and she tottered away from me just as fast as she could. And I thought, you simpleton, do you really think that I am going to reinforce your ignorance in front of this woman who knows you're lying? She isn't colorblind. She's ignorant. She's not stupid. You can't fix stupid. You can fix ignorance. You can fix ignorance with self-education. And all you have to do if you want to lose some of that ignorance is read Michael Eric Dyson's book, Long Time Coming. Read this book, pale faces. Read this book, melanaceous and melanotic people. I don't always approve of
Long Time Coming by Michael Eric Dyson.
But Long Time Coming by Michael Eric Dyson has to be in your library and has to be in your head. It is absolutely brilliant. Absolutely brilliant.
Y'all paying attention, viewers?
And while you're at it, get Whitney Young's book, Beyond Racism. It was written in the 50s, and you've got to read Whitney Young's book, Beyond Racism, to understand what's going on in this country, what has been going on in this country, and what will keep on going on in this country until we start educating instead of indoctrinating.
That's right.
Facts, facts. Now the next question. Do you feel like a lot of black people still enforce these things that we need to get rid of, especially with the so-called cultural appropriation thing? Because it's kind of hard to tell. It's kind of hard to tell what to get mad at this white girl who's walking around with these braids in her head, and black women are still walking around with perms in their hair, still trying to emulate these Europeans, still perpetuating that their natural hair is not good enough for society.
Look, young man. Look, young male. Look, young male. Look, young male. How some female wears her hair is her own damn business. When a melanemic female takes on the hairstyle of a melanaceous or melanotic woman, that's a tremendous compliment, because that's, I wish I could look the way you do. Now, as the number of people who are melanemic in this country shrinks and shrinks and shrinks, you are going to see melanemic women not only changing their hair into the style of black people, of melanaceous and melanotic people, but they are going to be chasing melanaceous and melanotic male, particularly, so that their children will live longer, and so will their grandchildren, and so will their great-grandchildren. Because as the hole in the ozone layer gets larger and larger because of our misuse of the environment, as that hole gets larger and larger and more sunlight is allowed to enter our environment, more and more melanemic people will die of melanoma, which is a cancer that you get as a result of your body being unable to resist the unpleasant rays of the sun. You probably aren't going to have that problem because you've got lots of melanin in your skin to protect yourselves from the rays of the sun. As time goes on, melanemic people are going to pursue, both male and female, melanemic people are going to pursue melanaceous and melanotic people so that their children and their grandchildren and their great-grandchildren will not die of melanoma. That's what's going to happen. Get used to it. Yes, we take on your dancing, we take on your singing, we take on your clothing, we take on your hairstyles, we even took on your Jesus Christ and changed him to be something that we could worship. One of the main, sorry, this is what it is. One of the main differences between
they took it on too, and won't let it go.
But you see,
God,
one
I
of the
love this
main
show.
Let it go.
One of the main differences between people of color and colorless people is when colorless people come into a new environment, they immediately adjust the environment to fit their needs. When people of color come into a new environment, they immediately adjust their needs to fit the environment. It has been that way since the beginning of time. You have to realize that if you're from the northern climes, you adjust the environment because your body isn't made to to live, to survive in that horrible cold. So you have to adjust the environment to fit your needs. If you're born in a warm climate, you don't have to worry about that. You don't have to worry about food because it's on the trees or it's in the animals that are going by. You don't have to worry about water because you follow the animals to know where to drink. You don't have to worry about clothing. It's warm enough that you don't need clothing. But if you live in the northern climate, you need places where you can get all three of those. So you get accustomed to adjusting the environment to fit your needs. It's one of the major differences between people who are melanemic and all the rest of the world. Does that make sense to you?
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah, that's the way it is. You have to understand that we melanemic people have to work really hard to stay alive. And we'll do whatever we have to adjust the environment to fit our needs. Right now, we are seeing in Texas the result of that. An 18-year-old man was allowed to buy an assault rifle. He was allowed to buy an assault rifle because the manufacturer of that assault rifle wants to make money. So they make a rifle that is made for the purpose of killing human beings. And they sell it to an 18-year-old person. You want to deal with this problem of killings with guns? Make every manufacturer, if there is a killing done with an assault rifle, the manufacturer of that rifle must pay $1 million to each of the close relatives of that victim. I'll bet you we could get assault rifles off the street in a hell of a hurry if we pass legislation saying you manufacturers are going to be held responsible for the killing that happens using your
That's
guns.
Facts.
right. Shut them all down and see how well that goes. They'll be in court in a minute to open up to sell more guns.
They won't
For
even
real
dream of
though.
doing that
They will
because the
fight for
members
that
of
business to
the
stay open.
NRA, the members of the NRA have lots of money and lots of influence, and they'll keep right on doing what they're doing right now. It's absolutely ridiculous that anybody who isn't in the military, in the active military, nobody who isn't in the active military has any business having an assault rifle in their possession or in their home.
For real. Facts.
Yeah,
Facts.
no sense in it.
There is no reason be having these high power rifles. What happened to just my grandpa said about the most thing the only thing you need to have in your house is either a 22 or a shotgun. What happened to those days? Now
Well,
when I walk
let
in
me
people's
tell you about
houses,
let me tell you about
it's
that.
like they
Oh my
going to
God.
war.
Oh my God. Get the book. This nonviolent stuff will get you killed. I can't remember the author's name, but he sent me a copy of it, and it is absolutely marvelous. This nonviolent stuff will get you killed. Get it and read it because he's a black man, and he says black people have guns in their homes to protect themselves in case somebody tries to break in. And he said he was sitting there talking to this grandmother, and she pointed to the corner, and there stood her shotgun. She said, "They ain't
Facts.
gonna bother me. Yeah, they ain't gonna bother me." And I was sitting here, and I was doing a podcast with him. I said, "I didn't know that." He said, "You need to know that we know how to use guns. We know how to protect ourselves with guns, but we aren't in custom. We aren't in the process. We aren't in the business of going out in the street and shooting people with them. We just have them in our homes for self protection." That makes perfectly good sense to me.
For real though.
Yeah, read the book. This nonviolent stuff will get you killed. It is just absolutely beautiful.
Yes, ma'am. I sure will.
And that's the name of the book?
That's the name of the book. This nonviolent stuff will get you killed.
Oh, what a
Look it up.
title.
Yeah, oh, what a title. And then you read it, and it's just full of stuff that never occurred to me because I've been raised in this society that says that black people are the ones we kill, and black people are the ones on whom we use the guns, and black people can't protect themselves, and we can do whatever we want to with these black people because they don't know any better than to let us do it. Whoa, wait a minute. In the first place, we're outnumbered by them. And the real fear, the reason for QAnon and the 3%ers and the oath keepers and the Proud Boys is the fear of melanemic males that they are going to be outnumbered in the future in this country. They're right, they are going to be outnumbered, but they're afraid that people of color think we mean it when we say, do unto others as you would have others do unto you. They think that they're afraid that you believe that the way we treat people of color is the way we want to be treated. You know, we don't. We don't mean that. We mean, it's ridiculous for them to have that fear, but they do have. And they have their guns and they have their marches and they can march without in the street with their tiki torches and with no problem with the local police. But when the Black Lives Matter people march, all hell breaks loose unless they do it very, very carefully. You are too young to remember the March on Washington when 880,000 melanaceous and melanatic men came to Washington, D.C. several years ago. Do you remember that?
I probably won't lie for it, but you know, I was born in the '90s, so I probably
The
I
Million
probably
Man
would.
March with Farrakhan.
They came into Washington, D.C. Some of them had their kids, their sons with them. They rode, they walked, they bicycled, they bussed. They came into Washington, D.C., over 880,000 of them, and there was no crime, there were no riots, there was no upheaval. They stood there and they listened until that one black person started to speak, and he's a racist, but he started to speak, and they all turned around and went home. There was no problem. The Black Man's March on Washington. It was absolutely beautiful. I watched that and thought, look at what they are able to do. No robberies, no killing, no fights, no chaos, none of that. They just came in, they made their statement, they turned around, and they went home. It's absolutely one of the most remarkable things I've ever watched. Because they didn't act the way we had said they did. They didn't live down to our expectations of them. They acted like sane, intelligent, thinking members of the human race, which is what they were, and which is what most of them are to this day.
Facts, 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 facts. Yes, yes. For all our people, for the people who are just joining us, we are here. We are here with Jane Elliott, the controversial one. Yes, 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 yes. As she puts in her own words, she has been banned. She has been banned from certain places. Where have you been? How many places have you been banned from? How many artists and how many times have you been banned?
Oh well, I've been banned along with this last whole thing. Um, Dick Cheney's wife tried to get me
Oh
banned
Lord.
when he was vice president. She tried to get me banned from colleges and universities at that time, and I laughed at it. So now here I am, 50 years later, being
Still
banned
going strong.
and still going strong and still saying practically the same thing and still having to say it because we are slow learners in this country. But
That's
now
the
I'm being
sad
banned by
part.
the evangelical Christians. The evangelical Christians are the ones who want to shut me up. Well, that's a cute trick, and I hope they get away with it, but they're not going to because people are going to continue.
Why they want
People
to
are
shut
going to
you up?
continue. People are going to continue to see the film The Eye of the Storm and the follow up
Mm,
to that film when the kids come back for their 10-year class reunion after they graduate from high school and talk about what happened to them when they were in third grade and say that it was the best thing that happened to them, that they learned more that day than they had ever learned before or since. And they were third graders when they went through it. They have never forgotten it. And they use what they learned on those 2 awful days to decide how they behave as 50-year-olds. One of them is now over 50 years old and he is retired as a lawyer. But when the principal gave me my class roll that year, he handed me my class roll and he said, Miss Elliott, these kids aren't going to learn to read. Pass them on, get them out of here. They'll probably never amount to anything anyway. Nobody else has been able to teach them to read, and neither will you. And I thought, well, you miserable, I thought things that you can't say on television. and or on radio or anyplace else. So I
You can
went
say it
to
here on
the
the Promise
office.
Key.
Well, no, I wasn't thinking nice things. So I went to the office and I looked at their interview files, and they all had high
He
math
wasn't
scores
thinking nice
and low
things.
reading and spelling scores. So I knew I was dealing with kids who had high intelligence, but were probably dyslexic. So the first day of school, I said, here's the problem, you kids. You don't see words the way they're written. You don't hear words the way they're said, but I have taken a course in how to teach children who have that problem. You're all very, very bright. You will learn to read because I'm going to teach you how to decipher the language. I'm going to teach you the code that the language is written in. And they looked at each other like, see, she's just as crazy as everybody says she is. I said to him, no, I'm not crazy. I know what I'm talking about. And I'm going to teach you how to read. And they were just like, yeah, right. So I taught them how to read. They came into my room reading at the first grade level in third grade. They left my room 9 months later, reading from the fourth to the sixth grade level. Some of their independent reading level scores were sixth grade level. In 9 months, they learned what they should have learned in the first year of school. It shouldn't have taken them. One of them, this was her 5th year in school because she had gone through kindergarten, first, pre-second, second, and now she's in third grade. For God's sake, she should have known all this before she got to third grade. She didn't know because her teachers didn't know. Her teachers got paid for teaching. They weren't doing their job. The little girl didn't get paid for what she learned because she couldn't learn the way they were teaching. She had a speech problem. By the time she'd been in my room for 9 months, you could understand every word she said because she had practiced saying the sounds of the language out minute by minute by minute by minute while she was in my room. It absolutely works. Orton Slingerland Phonics absolutely works if you want to teach every child how to read and how to spell. And every teacher should know how to teach Orton Gillingham Phonics because from 20 to 30% of the students in your classroom are going to have dyslexia. And somebody is going to say to you, some psychologist is going to say, that's not real. Dyslexia is just a catch-all term for a whole lot of different problems. No, it's not. It's a very real situation. And if you don't hear words the way they're said and you don't see words the way they're written, you have a terrible time learning to read. And I've talked to people in a maximum security prison about that very thing. And one black man said, if they had been doing this when I was in school, I wouldn't be where I am today. And he was in a maximum security prison. He didn't have to be there. If the schools had done what they got paid for doing, he wouldn't be in prison today. We could clean
that
out our
thing
prisons
called.
if we did a better job of teaching. Getting right now, I have alienated every educator in the room. Okay, if you don't believe me, get the book, John Money's book, Dyslexia and Your Child, and read it. And realize that this isn't a pipe dream. This is real. It was real for Henry Ford. Remember Henry Ford, the Ford automobile? Somebody said to him later on in his life, why don't you learn to spell? He said, because I can hire several secretaries to do my spelling for me.
Facts.
And he was absolutely right. But he was dyslexic. But look at what he did. Look what Albert Einstein did. And he was dyslexic. You know who those
Facts.
guys are?
He's one of the most famous ones.
Look at what Whoopi Goldberg and Danny Glover have done.
Wait, Whoopi's dyslexic? I didn't know that.
Yeah. Danny Glover and Whoopi Goldberg.
I could see Whoopi Goldberg. Yeah.
Absolutely. And you can see it being Danny Glover too. It's just you watch them and you listen to them. And if you know about dyslexia, you can spot it when it's happening and you can hear the way they use the words and the way they pronounce the words. And because that's the way they hear the words. It's just amazing. On the first day of school, when I was teaching third grade, I'd say to the group, I'd put the word saw on the blackboard. Say, what's that word? Part of them would say saw, part of them would say was, and some of them would say nothing. Children don't all see words the way they're written, and they don't all hear words the way they're said. So if you say to a group of children in which there are dyslexic children, turn to page 39 and answer questions number 4, 6, and 8. You might as well be saying 'twas brillig and the slithy traves did gyre and gibble in the wave, because they do not hear words the way they're said.
Okay. Miss Elliott, when the next time I can have you on the show? Cause I think this is another show altogether. This is another show
It just
altogether.
goes
I would.
on, right?
If
It keeps going.
we would go into prisons, if I would go into a prison and sit down with a group of maximum security people in that prison and say, write this sentence, I'm telling you that 2/3 of them, maybe 3/4 of them, wouldn't be able to spell the words properly. Many of the
Wow.
people in prison are there because the school system failed them. And the fact that they can complete college while they're in prison, but they couldn't complete 8th grade,
Basically
tells you
spells
something
that
about
out.
what's happening in the schools. Absolutely. Absolutely. That little dark-skinned child comes in the room, and that teacher, in many cases, automatically expects less of him. And teachers are more, and they've done studies that prove that teachers are more upset by students who exceed their expectations, the teacher's expectations, than they are by those who live down to their expectations of them. If you know more than the teacher thinks you do, you're in trouble with that teacher, because she has decided, because she's listened to the teachers in the teacher's lounge, and she knows what to expect of every one of her students. And if she's listened to that garbage, then that's how she sees those children. I didn't go into the teacher's lounge unless I absolutely had to, because I wasn't going. They were rather pleased to have me not there. After I did the exercise, I wasn't welcome in the teacher's lounge or in the building. It was an interesting experience.
Wow.
Really?
And these are
So
educators.
where
These
did you eat?
educators.
Yeah. The last year I was there, the last year I lived in Riceville, I was teaching junior high, and the elementary principal's wife. No, this is when I was still teaching 3rd grade. The elementary principal's wife stopped me at a teachers meeting and said, Jane, she was teaching at the junior high level. She said, Jane, you've got to get your kids out of this school. I said, why? She said, these teachers are trying to destroy your children. They're having fun doing it. I said, I'll get them out of this school. So we moved to a town 17 miles away, and I just drove back and forth to school every day, because I refused to have my children destroyed because of those teachers' anger at what I was teaching.
Wow.
Yeah, it has been an really extremely interesting experience to say, the fact that you're white isn't real. You aren't white, you're a shade of brown. And for you to judge people on the basis of the amount of chemical in their skin is ridiculous. Don't do it while you're in my classroom. So they went into the 4th grade, and and then they were told immediately, forget what you learned in Elliott's classroom.
Hmm. Look at
Wow.
It
that.
was an interesting experience.
Forget
Yeah.
what you learned in Elliot's classroom and listen to this BS that I want to
Yeah.
fill into your brains.
Complete
Right.
undermine.
Let me wash your
Yeah,
brain. Let
This
me
absolutely.
rewash you.
information.
There was one 4th grade teacher who would spend about the first half hour every day telling her students what an awful teacher Jane Elliott was. And they told me, my 4th graders would come and say, Mrs. So-and-so says you. I say, just listen to what she says. If you think she's right, just agree with her. If you don't think she's right, just keep your mouth shut. You know the truth. You don't have to agree with her just because she's saying it, but you do have to get through this year.
Wow.
Right. And what you saying makes so much sense, because I kind of went through that in my school years. It's like when I was going to I went my first years of school was in where I went to a school called Dillon. I was in a place called I live in a place called Dillon, and for the most part of my first years of school, they basically just passed kids on. I didn't realize how much I didn't know until I switched schools and switched districts to go to middle school. And when I got there, they were trying to figure out how come I didn't know the things fourth grader was supposed to know. By the time I got there, when I said where did I come from, it's like all of them just like, oh hell, we come.
Yep.
It's like all of them wanted to come and hug me, like, come on, we gotta teach you, we gotta fix all that, because
Yeah.
Dillon County at the time was not worried about academics. No Child Left Behind was like a death sentence to them instead of a call to
Yes,
make
yes,
sure
it
all
was.
the kids
Yes,
on the
it was.
same level.
That should never have happened. That should never
Exactly.
have
A
happened.
big time
No
death
Child
sentence.
Left Behind is a crime against humanity. Absolutely ridiculous.
It did no justice at
One of
all.
the things. Here's just one of the things you learned in school that you shouldn't have. You remember this map in
But
school?
they still failing.
You remember this map? Remember this map? You see
Mm-hmm.
Greenland hanging down here like a great big ripe plum in the middle of this map?
Mm-hmm.
You see on this map, Greenland is bigger than South America.
Which
You
is
see
not
this on
true.
this map?
Nowhere near
Of
true.
course it's not true. On this map, the equator is 2/3 of the way down the map. Instead of being halfway between the North Pole and the South Pole, it's 2/3 of the way down the map. It's clear down here. Look at the size of Canada on this map. It stretches from hell to breakfast. People, this map was, the man who did this map was Mercator, and he was commissioned by the Pope to make a map that showed the spread of Christianity.
Say his name again?
The Mercator, the Mercator projection map. And so the northern countries in which people are, in so-called white people live, are bigger than the countries in south of the equator. This is a racist map, and they're using it today in the schools. Now somebody will say, well, you can't do that. You can't change it. That's the way it is. That's the way. No, no, no. There's a map called the Peters projection map, and I hope I have a copy of it right here. And if I don't have it, write down Peter. Oh, Lord, I've got to find it now because I've got you excited about it. Now I've got to, oh, dear. Well, get a copy of the Peters projection map, and you'll find out that on the Peters projection map, the equator is halfway between the North Pole and South Pole. Greenland is a little tiny thing up at the top of the map, and South America and Africa are the size they're supposed to be. And at the bottom of the Mercator projection map, on many of the producers' maps, it says in the legend, it says South America is actually 9 times larger than Greenland. But that isn't the way it looks on the map. If you can wait a minute, I'll go and get one of those. Do you have a minute?
Yes.
Yes, ma'am.
No problem.
Okay, just a minute. Just a minute.
Right now, trying. And that.
Hmm.
Yeah, I'm on Amazon. I put in my Amazon card.
You said you on Amazon?
Yeah, I just added long.
Look at this. This is the Peters projection map.
Okay.
See Greenland.
Right, it's much smaller.
Greenland on this map. Clear up here. There's Greenland. Look at South America. Look at Africa. People, the sizes and shapes on this map, the shapes are distorted. The sizes and locations are right. Look at the size of Canada on this map. It's hard to do this when you're okay. Find the United States over here, and then look at the size of Canada, and look at the size of Greenland on this map, and compare it to the one that you just saw. People, the sizes and locations on this map are right. The shapes are distorted, but the sizes and locations are right. Compare that, keep that thought in your head, and then go back to this.
Mm-hmm.
Do you think it's time for us to stop using this map? This map makes no sense anymore, people. There are lots of maps, but this one makes more sense than the Mercator map, and it's time for everybody to use it. And you can get copies of this map by going to capital O, capital D, capital T, Box 134, Amherst, Massachusetts 01004, or just go on the net, www.odt.org. Order the Peters projection map and put it on the wall behind you when you're doing a podcast. For God's sake, put this up where people can see it. And when they say, where'd you get that mess on the wall? You say, you go to ODT. What?
That's right. Our question, that map looks strange.
I'm not hearing you.
No, I'm put it up in behind you on your wall, people will start asking you because they won't recognize it because that's not what they're used to. So you can educate them at that time. So you're right. Have that on the back of your wall on your podcast.
Put that behind you
Right.
so that when people look at you, they'll see that map behind you and they'll say, where in the devil did you get that mess behind you? And then you say, let me tell you about that.
Yeah.
Our lesson for the day is, if you're teachers, if you have children in school, you send to odt.maps.org, and order copies of the Peters projection map and send them to the teacher and say, I expect you to use this map when you teach geography to my child. And take copies. I took copies to my third grader, my daughter took copies to her third grade teacher, to her daughter's third grade teacher, and they got torn. So she took her another one, and it got lost. So she took her another one until the teacher finally put it up on the wall and let the children see the truth.
Right.
I believe in teaching something closer to the truth. The Peters projection map is closer to the truth than the Mercator projection map is.
Yeah, because they're always trying to make Africa smaller, South America smaller, America smaller, and Europe has to always be bigger. China is bigger than Africa now. They're trying to make it look like it's just
But
ridiculous.
look at it for real
For real.
people. These are the right sizes. Come on.
That makes sense.
No
As you can
wonder
see, it's like a
we're afraid
puzzle.
of
It just
Africa.
goes
Look
in
at
like
how
a
much
puzzle.
they have. People, we've got to start teaching the truth. It's just only 15 to 18% of the population of the human population of the world is considered white. Start thinking about that. Look at all these countries in which the people are not white. I take savage delight in this whole thing because we played this stupid game for at least 88 years of my life. We've been playing this stupid game, and we've all been going along saying, yeah, if you say so. Yes, boss, if you say so, and nodding when we're thinking, that sounds like a bunch of crap to me. But no, yes, sir, if you say so. It's time for us to say, wait a minute, let's get real. Let me show you the map of the world the way it really looks. Let me show you this map. And you can get it in this size, and you can get it in placemat size that are laminated, so that when your kids get up in the morning and go to eat breakfast, they're seeing the world the way I want them to see it instead of the way the social studies teacher wants them to see it.
That's what's
And they
up.
have them this big, and they have them room size, so you can get all kinds of sizes of this map and put them up where people have to see them.
I would like to give a shout out to Latta High School because that was the first time, because I didn't know there were two different maps for a long time until I went to Latta High School. Shout outs to Mr. Kurt. If you're still teaching at Latta High, I'd like to thank you very much. If it wasn't for you and other good history teachers who are out there actually teaching the truth, like Miss Elliott here, I'd like to give a quick shout out to them right quick. If it wasn't for Ladder High, I wouldn't even known such a thing. I grew up with the Peter Project man. I mean, he didn't. I don't know if they told him. I don't know if Ladder commissioned like for all history teachers to have that up, but he had it up in his classroom, and it wasn't until
Well,
like
the only group that I
now.
know that use it on a regular basis is the Boston Public Schools, and they put it in the classrooms in the Boston Public Schools because somebody saw me describe it on the Oprah Winfrey Show. And then they put the Peters
Ah,
projection map in the Boston Public Schools, and I thought, well, okay, that's one. That's one. But when I show that map to teachers, and when I go to speak to teachers, and I pull out the Peters projection map in Australia, this woman sitting there, a teacher, probably 55 years old, said, I don't know what you're saying. I said, get up here on this stage. And she got up here on the stage and I said, now see what it says. I had her read the legend at the bottom of the Mercator projection map, which says South America is actually 9 times larger than Greenland. She read it, and I said, read it out loud. And she said, it actually says that. I said, did you think I was lying? She said, well, I never read it that way before. Well, now you know.
Evidently, yes.
She was just gobsmacked. She didn't know that, and she had been teaching for 30 years. But she had never read the legend and realized that South America is actually 9 times larger than Greenland, because on the map it doesn't show it that way, and everybody knows the map is right. No, the map is not right. It's
Yeah,
time for
that
us
map
to
looks
tell children.
that map
It's
looks
time for
like
us to
it's
tell
been messed
children.
around with.
What?
That map looks like it's been messed around with.
This one does?
The first one.
What do you mean?
Yeah, that one.
This one?
Mm-hmm.
This one looks like it's been messed around with. Well, I've shown it to a lot of people, but other than that, it hasn't been messed around
That
with.
looks like it's been purposely made. Greenland is purposely made bigger. South America's purposely made smaller. Africa's purposely made smaller. That's done on purpose.
That's the way
That looks like
the Mercator map is.
Mm-hmm.
That's the way the Mercator map was drawn, deliberately to show the spread of Christianity. It has nothing to do with reality. It has to do with let's spread Christianity. What's happening in this country today is going back to the times of Mercator. Let's spread Christianity. Let's force women to have babies instead of allowing them to have abortions. Let's force women to do what
the
the
entire
Bible
country of Japan to
them
have
to
a
do with
civil
their body.
war over a religion that wasn't theirs.
Yeah, and we are on the verge of a civil war if we don't do something to put a stop to this nonsense. You need to realize that. That's exactly what our former president would like to have happen. We have to put a stop to this nonsense, and we have to do it now. Any other questions?
It's always some
I think I'm
questions
out
to
of questions. I
ask.
just like hearing you talk. I just like hearing
Right?
you talk.
It's always something to say. Maybe
Don't
not in
ever
the
get me
question
started.
format, but it's always something to say.
Well, don't ever get me started because I don't know when to stop. Get a copy
Oh,
of the
by all
National
means.
Geographic. Get a copy of the National Geographic magazine for April of 2018. Now do this. Get the April 2018 National Geographic magazine and read it. The picture on the front is twin girls, one what we call black and one what we call white, and they are twin girls. And you would call them biracial. Do not ever use the word biracial again. They are not biracial. They are mosaic. A mosaic is something new and beautiful and made of many different elements. And that's what those girls are. They are not biracial because there's only one race on the face of the earth. We've got to replace the word biracial with the word mosaic.
I'm gonna have to
We
start
are
that.
all mosaics. We are all made of many different elements. So let's get over the idea of several different races, and let's get rid of the racist language that we use in the schools on a daily basis. And in the class, we don't just use it in the classroom, we use it on the television shows. And there's the map I was looking for.
Mosaic.
Okay. Anything else I can say to you?
Nikes? You got anything else?
I mean, yes.
There's another book.
There
There's
was
another book I'd like for you. Get
Yes,
the
ma'am.
book, A Collar in My Pocket. A Collar in My Pocket. I wrote it, and it's not a great book. And I make no mistake about this. That somebody counted 100 errors as far as what mistakes I made. But get the book, A Collar in My Pocket, and read it because it's a description of how I came up with the idea for the experience, how I conducted the experience, and what happened to me, to my family, and to my world as a result of doing it. It would be interesting reading for you. It's called A Collar in My Pocket, written by Jane Elliott. And I'm not trying to sell books here, but
Collar
most
in
people,
my pocket.
A Collar in My Pocket. And I called it that because the kids had to wear an ugly green collar the day they were on the bottom and they had their own color eyes. And after it was over, they wouldn't give up their collars. And I said, why not? They said, because we don't ever want to forget what happened here. So they took them home. And when they came back for their 10-year class reunion, a couple of them still had their collars. I said, why do you have that collar? Because I don't want to forget what I learned. And one of them said, every time I hear one of those racist remarks, I wish I had one of those collars in my pocket. And I could take it out and put it around that person's neck and say, now you wear that for 2 weeks and see how you think you'd like to be treated the rest of your life. So the name of the book is A Collar in My Pocket. And one of my students is the one who said, I wish I had one of those collars in my pocket. I think that everybody should go, every teacher should go through the blue-eyed, brown-eyed exercise and have that collar around their neck while they're going through the exercise and be told, you can take that collar, keep it in your pocket, because for the rest of your life, that idea is going to be in your head and that collar is going to be in your pocket.
So do you really feel that
Facts.
all white people are racist?
I feel that if you graduated from high school in the United States of America and you aren't a racist, you weren't paying attention. If you were in high school and you learned that all the valuable things that were done in the United States of America were done by white males, that's teaching racism. And that's what we did. If you go to Sunday school every morning and you see that picture of Jesus on the wall, and that isn't a black man as far as you're concerned, that's teaching racism. But we would swear that we aren't teaching. If you use, tell me, if we use the Mercator map in the schools and you've seen the difference, and nobody questions it and they keep on using it, that's teaching racism.
Yeah, because
Make no
when you go
mistake
to
about it.
that's true, because when you go to other countries like China, they have their God in their image. India have their God in their
Mm-hmm.
image. Europeans have their God in their image. Everyone have their God in their image. But when you start changing someone else's image to look like you and have them worship you, and you're treating them like a slave and you're mistreating them, that's the problem here. That's the racist problem here. Stemming from
Mm-hmm.
their great grandparents, coming from out of Europe and Saudi Arabia and those places.
But let me warn you, you're not born a racist. You are not born a racist. You have to be taught to be a racist. And that's what we do because we are ignorant. When we get educated, we'll find out that we've been wrong all these years, and then we'll change how we educate people. We've
So
got
you
to
think some
stop
parents,
teaching the lie.
you think
What?
some parents maliciously or maybe indirectly raise their children racist, white parents? You think they do it on
But
purpose, or they just have to do it to fit into their racist privilege or whatever, or their white
look,
privilege?
you can only teach what you know. Parents have gone to
Okay.
the same schools that their children are going to. Parents heard the same things that their children hear. Parents should never have heard that Columbus discovered America because he didn't. Parents should never have heard
True.
people who are natives of
True.
this land called Indians and Redskins. They weren't Indians and they weren't Redskins. They were Africans. They were Afro-Americans. We should stop calling this country America and call it what it is, the United States of America. We've got to change what we're saying in the classrooms if we want to change the way society behaves outside the classroom. Does that make sense to you?
Mm-hmm.
Yes,
Yes,
ma'am.
it
You
is.
have to
Yes.
remember that it isn't only pale faces who learn this crap. We all learn it. Children of color learn the same things that so-called white children do. We all learn the same lie, and we all react to that same lie. So
Mm.
if we keep on telling the lie, we'll keep on having no, people get to the age of 18, 25, 36 and say to themselves, good God, why did I believe that nonsense? I'm traveling and I'm looking around and I'm seeing that the things I learned in school were true. Look at this map that Elliott showed us today. This isn't the same map I saw in school. Why didn't anybody ever show me this map? Why did I think that Africa and South America were small and Greenland was so large? Why didn't somebody tell me this? Because your teachers didn't know this. And most of them still don't because they are still using the Mercator map. Get copies of this map. You want to make a difference? Get copies of this map and send it to the schools and say, use this map. And if you don't, I'm coming to your school and I'm going to talk to your students. I'm going to insist that you allow me to come in and introduce your students to a new way to look at the world, boys and girls. And here's
Don't
one
tempt
that is
me.
closer to
Look
reality.
at that.
Do it.
Looks
I
Don't
like
tell
tempt
you
it.
to
me.
do
Looks
that.
like a fraud. It looks fraud.
Go to the school. Everybody's a teacher. Go in and be an educator. Not just a teacher, but an educator. Take this map and you can they'll send you they'll send you 50 or 60 in a little packet. A whole mess of them. Or you call this get a hold of these people and say, I want to take this map and introduce it to a class of students. Will you send me X number of postcard size maps to give out to these students so they'll have this map in their pockets? And if they're smart, ODT will say, we won't do this for everybody, but we'll do it for you. And then maybe the rest of the teachers will catch on and they'll order some maps too. They want to sell this map. They don't want to sell this map just because it's right. They want to sell this map because they want to make money. That's the reason you have assault rifles, because people want to make money. This is a money-making enterprise, but it's also an educational enterprise. Get with it.
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
Yes,
hear
ma'am.
that.
Yes, ma'am. Yeah, okay.
I hear that right
Well,
there. That just makes
ma'am's a whole lot.
the whole
Ma'am's
world
a whole
map.
lot better than I generally get called. Go
hmm
on.
The whole world map just makes sense, and
For
you can see
real,
Well,
the
though.
real from the fake.
this
You see
makes
it.
sense, people. You can't give every kid a globe, but you can give him a picture of the world, the map, the land masses of the world that's more realistic than the one he's been used to. And you have to make them aware that people came from here to populate every landmass on the face of the earth. Everybody on the face of the earth have ancestors that came from right there. Right there. That's it.
Yes, yes, yes. Powerful words from the powerful Jane Elliott. I'd like to take this time to throw some more shout outs to all my hopefully all these shout outs I give, they'll start sponsoring me for a little bit, cause we gotta sponsor ourselves. Creators gotta sponsor each other, cause if we don't, what else are we doing it for? So shout outs to Lioness Films and Photography for anybody who wants to do who need any film work done or photography done. Lioness Films and Photography will have you down packed. Hit her up anytime. She will have to hit her up anytime. I'm pretty sure she'll be able to get to you as soon as you hit her up on Facebook. You have let's give a shout out to Rasta Hut Caribbean Escape Restaurant in Marion, South Carolina on Main Street. They have very delicious food. Please give them out. Please check them out. Shout outs to Mimi's Natural Pantry. She makes natural lime soaps and natural preservatives. The grape jam is delicious. And I'd like for people to please tune in later tonight for the late night ghetto. We have more music from you from our local artists, and we also have some from one of our past guests, Stiggs. For all those who do remember my homie Stiggs, we have some of his music on. We will be playing it tonight on the late night ghetto. Now, is there anybody else have any questions for Miss Elliott?
So
Why
do
don't you
you?
get Lioness Films and Photography? Why don't you get Lioness Films and Photography to make a film about the Peters projection map?
Ooh.
See,
Ooh.
that's a good one right
Ooh.
there.
Here's a gem that makes some money and make a difference. Just do what I just did for you with this map and the Mercator projection map and sell it to the schools.
You know what?
Let's do
Yes.
it.
Let's do that.
Let's do it.
Do it.
Let's do that.
that.
Let me
Do it. You've got the person that you're mentioning them on your show. Use them.
I sure will.
Lioness Films and Photography. Tell them I'll be expecting to get a copy of that film.
Yes, ma'am.
Yes.
All right.
Empress, you hear me? I know you watch my show. Empress, please. We about to get to work now. We about to get
excited.
some work
Okay.
on now, because
I can't believe what I just heard.
All right now. Hey, Nikes, that's two elders that gave me a mission. That's two elders that done gave me a mission now.
Okay, go for it. Go for it. You can do it.
Yes, ma'am.
One was a male, one's a female.
Right. All right. Anybody else? All right, anybody, please. Anybody got any more questions?
Yeah, Lioness Films and Photography. And have her come on the platform and Jane to be there, of course, and we get this organized.
Yes, yeah. Matter of fact, that could be the next. That could be the next episode. I'm gonna go and start getting that. I'm gonna go and start getting that together tomorrow. Cause I was supposed
But
to be.
you do. Listen to
I
me.
was going to sit, ma'am.
Listen to me. You do that without me being involved in it in any way, because it will be banned if I am involved in it in any way.
Okay.
So you do it on your own. Don't mention my name. Just say, here's something we learned this week. Let me show you something you haven't learned, probably haven't learned yet. And don't mention my name, because this isn't the reason I'm telling you this. I'm telling you this because you have Lioness Films and Photography. They could do this. So I challenge you to do it. Go for it. Just send me a
Challenge
copy so
accepted.
that I can. Okay.
Yes, ma'am.
All right.
All right. Now, if there's not any more, if there's any more questions, I guess we'll end it here. I'd like to thank both my co-hosts, Nigus, Davis, please, big sister, big brother. I'm glad that y'all always be on here with me, support, and y'all helped my channel grow so much. I'd like to thank the lovely Jane Elliott. I really appreciate you being on my show. When Nigus said she could get you on here, it was just another
That was beautiful.
brain blast, because it was just like, yes, because I've been following you for a long time. People don't understand the guests that I have on this show. I've only dreamt of like actually being able to speak to these people. And it is a blessing to be able to actually sit here and speak to you tonight, Miss Elliott. And I really appreciate
Well,
taking the time to be with us
I'm
on the
delighted to
Promise
have been
Key.
given the time. Thank you very much. Thank you. Because
Yes.
here we are,
Thank you,
melanated,
Jane Elliott.
melanations, and melanotic people, and we can get along just fine, can't we?
Yes, ma'am,
I
we
think
can.
we did a good job tonight,
We
right?
can,
Yes, ma'am.
and because you and I are 30th to 50th cousins, because we all came from the same place originally. So good night, cousin, and thank you for inviting me to be with you. Okay.
Yes.
Good
Love
night,
and
cousin. Bless up.
good night, cousin.
Please, everybody,
Good
share.
night.
Everybody, please share, like, and
Okay.
subscribe, and tune in for the next episode. Like, share, subscribe, and please share, because we want more people to get onto this. Lioness Films and Photography. I'm about to hook. I'm really about to put y'all on now, because we about to go off now. Nobody, not too many people just gonna keep
that
giving
project
it.
right there needs to be
For real, this is
rectified.
gonna be big.
It needs
This
to
is
be
going to be
rectified.
big.
We can't lose
Yes,
with that. We can't lose with it.
we
We got
can.
all the information
Okay.
we need from Jane.
Yes, ma'am. All right, y'all. On that, we're gonna end it.
This is the
Peace,
important. This
love.
is the important thing about today. Take care of it. Okay.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
Goodbye now. Goodbye. I'm going.
Yes, ma'am.
She's
Good
All
going.
right.
night.
Peace,
Love and gratitude.
love,
Peace and
and
love.
hoodoo.
Love and gratitude.